In this section, you will learn the importance of good meeting agendas and what a meeting agenda is, what the purpose of it is. Then how to create specific and effective ones, like what are the ingredients of good agendas. And then lastly, we're going to do an exercise of sharing live how to create an agenda out of a context where you get asked like a specific context and then how would you create it, and then I'm going to share my thoughts on it. First, what is a meeting agenda? A meeting agenda gives structure to a meeting. There are a ton of different levels or types of agendas. Obviously, for a 30-minute one-on-one, you don't need to spend a lot of time on an agenda. But even for a quick 30-minute meeting, it's helpful to write down the 3-4 topics that you want to talk about, and that's the agenda. Like the agenda is what are the sub-objectives that you have for the meeting. Like for instance, if your objective is for the meeting to inform your supervisor about progress of your project, the project you're running, then the sub-agenda points could be specific issues you're experiencing and then talking about them separately. But then for a 2-day workshop, strategy workshop with 30 attendees, it might be a more detailed agenda. It might be a 2-page Word document. Every day is split into 5 sessions, 5 sub-meetings, so to speak, with specified times and who will run it and a break in between, which you can see here, which says conference agenda, or it could be like a workshop, like a 1-day, 2-day workshop. So there you want to have a bit more of a structured agenda or a more detailed one. While then the one in the middle here on the left are a bit more informal, a bit easier to create. In general, I would always recommend you to have an agenda. Doesn't matter what it looks like or how detailed it is, but at the minimum, think about what are the 2-3 topics, discussion points that you want to cover in the meeting, like what are the substructures of your meeting. So if it's a one hour meeting, maybe it's a 5-minute introduction, and then there are 2-3 topics, and then the last 10 minutes of Q&A or wrapping up. That could be an agenda, or the way you want to structure or approach the meeting. An agenda has several benefits, and I think it's really important to bring that point home, to make sure that you always have some kind of agenda or some kind of structure or plan for the meeting. Number one, it clarifies expectations and allows everybody to prepare for the meeting. Really good meetings allow people to come in prepared. So if it's sharing a presentation, if we're talking about a specific part of a presentation, about a pitch deck, sharing the pitch in advance, and then in the agenda, it's review the first section, discuss or gathering feedback, then it's clear for everybody. The purpose is to come prepared with feedback for the presentation. And as an attendee, you wanna do a good job as well, right? If it's an important meeting, even the attendees could be a bit nervous of what to expect. Like, where do I need to provide thoughts? What can I do in advance to do a good job in the meeting? And so having an agenda and sharing it in advance especially ensures that people come prepared and that they feel comfortable, and it's pretty clear for them to stay on topic and what the topics are to discuss, to decide, or if it's just information. Second point, it increases focus and avoids wasting time. Quite often when discussions go off topic, when somebody starts a random question or takes over a meeting, it is because people aren't aware of what the objectives are or what the agenda items are that the meeting is currently on or people are currently supposed to solve. And so then people just start sharing and participating in ways that maybe as a host or facilitator you didn't intend to, or you don't like where the conversation is going. And so having an agenda ensures the audience, but also you as a facilitator, to bring the group back together. So if the objective is to discuss survey questions and then somebody starts talking about the timeline of the survey, you as a facilitator have the option to say, okay, on the agenda we're currently talking about, the focus is on the questions, let's bring it back to the questions. We actually have a separate section later to discuss the timeline. And so it helps you and the audience to stay focused on the objectives for the specific meeting. And lastly, it reflects positively on you, on your credibility, on your leadership style, because of something called the halo effect. Even by simply having a structure, people already assume that you're structured, that you know what you're doing. So even if you don't fully know what the objectives are, or you're not fully sure that the meeting will go in the right way, by already having a structure, and then even at the beginning, you could start asking the group, okay, these are the objectives I have for the meeting. This is how I think we should proceed. Do you agree? You have a good opportunity of getting people's feedback early and making sure that everybody is aligned on the agenda. Obviously, it would be better if you already knew exactly the purpose, the objective at the top, and then the sub-agenda points, and that they are correct and that people agree on it. But even if it's not exactly the right structure, it's already better having a structure than having no structure. If you go into a meeting with a blank sheet of paper and you kick off the meeting of saying, I have this big question, but I don't know how to solve it, that reflects badly on your leadership style, on your ability to structure difficult topics, getting to a solution. And so having a good agenda will automatically give you credibility, and people will assume you have good project management skills, good leadership skills, the ability to deal with difficult questions, and that's a key ingredient for being a successful business person. And so I hope it's clear that having an agenda is really important. It has tons of benefits, and so you want to make sure that you always have some kind of agenda. What makes a good one? I think 3 points or considerations for your agendas and for great agendas. Number 1, keep it simple. I think the simpler, the better. Like you're not going to get credibility points for having an elaborate design and a lot of detail. It's better to have the key 3-4 topics right than having a ton on the agenda and people are confused and people start challenging the agenda. So keeping it really simple. Like for a 45-minute meeting, 3 to 5 agenda items is probably a good starting point. And if you have a lot, start bucketing them. So you don't want to have a long list of 8 agenda items. It's better than to bucket them into 3 sections and then topics underneath it. The second point, being specific. The more specific you can be, the better. As I said in the previous section, you want to go away from generic topics, from generic objectives or generic agenda items like sales, integration project, staffing, to more specific ones. For instance, discuss the latest sales strategy or review integration project status update. It's a bit more specific. You could go even more specific, but it's already a tad better than just having one word or generic theme agenda items. So writing a bit more of a full sentence is, I think, more effective. And starting with a verb, I think, is a good one. It emphasizes the point again of inform, blah, 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 discuss this topic, or align, present, which automatically forces you to be a bit more specific than just a noun or a word. And lastly, think about the order on your agenda and the timing. So you could, for instance, if you have 3-4, if it's a 2-hour meeting, you have 5 agenda items, 5 topics, you could already write next to it allocated time for each of those points. And then number 2, you want to think about the order. Which point to start first? Do you start with the more important ones first? Do you end with the more important ones because you know somebody important will dial in later, so you can't discuss it first? Or is there a logical sequence to it? So first you want to share something, then you want to discuss, and then you want to decide it. Whatever it be, it's just important to be thoughtful about the order and not just randomly throwing it in there. As I said in the beginning, it's more important to find your own style and making sure that you have one than having the perfect one. Now I want to do a quick exercise to give you an opportunity to practice creating an agenda and practice what we've discussed, learned in the past couple of minutes. The context here is, on the left-hand side, you were tasked to launch a customer survey with the intent to understand our customers' preferences and attitudes towards our products. You are 2 weeks before the launch of the survey and have scheduled a meeting to update a cross-functional senior group on the progress and plans. what could a meeting agenda look like? And now I would ask you to stop the video for 30 seconds, a minute, and come up with a few topics on the right-hand side or ways to structure the agenda. Welcome back. The situation is 2 weeks before the launch of the survey. So in this case, I would probably have a decision point about the survey launch date. Decide about survey launch date. They probably haven't seen, since they're senior execs, potentially they haven't had time to really look at the survey. They might be like one of 10 important meetings that day. So I think it's valuable to share the latest survey questions and then probably inform about survey timeline and then decide about the survey launch date. And probably a bit of context around the survey or objectives. Share survey objectives and latest survey questions. Present detailed timeline and then decide about decide launch date and any other open questions. And then probably like the overall objective or theme for the meeting is discuss survey employee or customer survey. Then the first point is to share objectives. Then the timeline, and then deciding on the launch date. So this could be a very simple agenda. Obviously, there's hundreds of different options of what you think are the most important objectives and agenda items in the meeting. In reality, you would have way more context and know a bit more about what these senior stakeholders care about, what the outstanding topics are. But this is just something I came up very quickly and shows you that, to the point I said earlier, it's more important to have an agenda than having the perfect agenda. And so already having this, it's clear that you have a plan that you're trying to drive towards. And then at the beginning of the meeting, you could ask the group, do these objectives make sense? Anything else that we should add? And so you could also have a fourth point, other discussion topics. And then you could add it here even during the meeting in sub-bullets. Lastly, lessons learned. We talked about how important it is to have a meeting agenda. The point of this section is to be clear about the importance of a meeting agenda and how to create one. But I think creating one is actually not that difficult. It's not rocket science, but it's important to have one. And so the key takeaway here is to create a meeting agenda for every meeting. Even if it's just a few bullets, be sure to have it simple. Simple is better here. Then being a bit more specific is helpful, and thinking about the meeting order, sequence, timing as part of the meeting and how you would structure your meeting.